Hi guys, I'm Chantel and I mostly blog over at Intentional Homeschooling, and today I wanted to share a really exciting video with you, or exciting for me anyway. I wanted to share some middle grade book recommendations, and even as an adult, actually especially as an adult, I really love middle grade books. Obviously I read some when I was a kid, but I didn't really read any good quality children or middle grade books. I read, The Babysitter's Club over and over and over again, but I feel like I missed out on so many good classics, just tried and true books during that phase of my life, and now I'm just really discovering them as an adult for the first time. And so I wanted to share just a few recommendations today. I thought about sharing my absolute favorites, but I don't own all the hard copies of the books, and I want to show you the titles of them. So I'm gonna wait for that actual video, but these ones that I'm going to be sharing are really good recommendations of books that I really enjoyed. And I read these all as an adult, so I think they're ones that kids will enjoy and also ones that adults will enjoy. The reason that I love middle grade books so much is because I feel like there's a definite line between the good and the evil, and the good always wins out. I feel like I love that they're so clean, and that they can go really deep into some excellent topics, but they always leave you feeling good, even though there's some struggle throughout. And I'm really excited to share these ones with you. So the first one I want to share is a huge book, and I took the dust jacket off, but the dust jacket is beautiful. This is The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. Selznick? I don't know. Now this one is a huge book, but it's not really as big as it seems. This is a novel in words and pictures, and it's just gorgeous. So to start, there's a brief introduction by a little bit about the book, but then it starts out in pictures, and there are like 30 pages of pictures before you actually get to the first written part of the first chapter here. See if I can find it. Here, this is the actual text here, and the words are like, the pages aren't filled, and then it goes into pictures, and it just goes back and forth between the text and the pictures. And so this story is set in the 1930s, I believe. It's been a while since I read it. It's about a boy named Hugo and the adventure that he goes on. And I don't know, the switch between the words and the pictures is just beautiful. It's really well done. And I would highly recommend this one, probably for, I don't know, ages 8 and up, I would say. On a different note, there's a very short book, and that is Love That Dog by Sharon Creech. And this is a novel in verse. I love novels in verse, and we'll probably have a video about my favorite novels in verse. But this one, so it's really short because it's written in verse and there's not that many pages. But it's about a boy that learns about poetry, and he tells his story about his dog. And it's just so beautifully done. I would highly recommend reading this one either out loud or getting the audio. There's just something about, verse and poetry that just needs to be read out loud. And there is a second part or a second book called Hate That Cat. So this one I would say I read to my kids when they were younger. I'm trying to think here now. Probably I would say like even 5 and up, maybe 6 and up. This is a really good one. The next one is Princess Academy by Shannon Hale. Now, the only thing I have against this book is that it's called Princess Academy, which that is what happens in this book. The main character named Miri does have to go to a Princess Academy because they find out that the next princess is going to be from their area. And I get that, but I feel like Princess Academy makes it sound like such a girly book, and is really not like that at all. So it's about a girl named Miri who is small for her age, and so she can't work in the mines like the rest of the kids her age and the people in her village, and she feels a little worthless because of it. And so it's about the story of her kind of finding herself, but then she ends up saving the village. And I love that the ending of this book isn't what I thought it would be. It didn't feel like super predictable like I thought from the name. I thought it was going to be a very girly book that was very predictable, and it wasn't. And it is also, I think, part of a series, but generally I just tend to read the first book in a series, so I haven't read more than that. But this one, even though it is called Princess Academy, I do think boys would like it too. It's got some cool fantasy elements to it, and I would say anywhere from age 7 and up. At least if you're reading out loud to them. If they're going to read it, then based on the language, probably 8, 9 and up, I would say. Or as an adult, anytime. Now this book, next one, I don't have the dust jacket for anymore. It's Okay for Now by Gary D. Schmidt. I think he was probably the person that really turned me on to middle grade novels. His writing is so spectacular. Now, this one is actually a companion novel. The first one is called Wednesday Wars, and I would recommend actually reading that one first. I just don't have the copy with me right now. So Wednesday Wars follows a boy named Holling Hood, and this one follows Doug Switek. And Doug does appear in the first book, not very much, but a little bit. And I think that in order to fully enjoy Okay for Now, it's better to get a little bit of an idea of what his personality is like in Wednesday Wars. And I find if you describe Gary's books, they end up kind of sounding a little boring, but they're so deep. There's so much more there than meets the eye to begin with. And I would say these are for a little older, middle grade, probably grade 6 and up, I would say. But they are so good and so worth reading as an adult as well. Okay, the next one, I just finished reading a couple days ago, and that is Inkheart by Cornelia Funk. Now this one is about a girl named Maggie who finds out at the age of, how old is she, maybe like 12 or so, that her father can read characters out of books, which sounds like a fascinating ability and one that we would all love to have as readers, but he can't choose who he brings from the books. And also, when he brings someone from a story, someone also, or something from his world ends up going into the story. So it can get a little dangerous. And this is the story about what happens when he brings some characters from a very dark story. And this is kind of their battle in trying to figure out how to make things right again. And so this one I would probably recommend for like 9 and older. And it is also part of a series, and this is the only book in the series so far that I've read, but I do want to read the other ones yet. This next one is a fun read. It's called Green Glass House, and it's by Kate Milford. Now this one follows a boy named Milo who lives in Green Glass House, which is a very secluded house, I think on a mountain, and it's also known as a smuggler's inn. But the story happens during the winter holidays, and he's super excited just to have the holidays to do nothing but read. He likes to read, and the holidays are generally their dead time. They don't usually have any guests, and so he's just looking forward to that. And then all of a sudden they have these people that are wanting to come to the inn, and these guests just keep arriving, and it's all very mysterious. So it's about how he tries to solve a mystery that is taking place while this happens. A little bit of a spoiler, if you want to read this book, then skip ahead a bit. But at the end, he finds out that this person that's been helping him is actually a ghost. And I mean, I'm fine with ghosts in books, but I just feel like that came so out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting that, and I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I really did enjoy this book, so that's why I would recommend it. And I would probably say this one would be for 9 and up as well. Okay, and the last one. This one is Harbor Me by Jacqueline Woodson, and I know she has had some other books that have been highly raved, and I haven't read any of them yet. But this one is about 6 kids who kind of have a special class for a year in school. And as an ex-teacher, now homeschooler, I love the idea of being able to take just 6 kids and make that a class. Like, that sounds so ideal. But it's about the story about how these kids get really close in this one year and just share their struggles with each other. I really appreciate that. There is a tape recorder that comes into play, and they start recording some of their stories, and they say in 20 years they're going to meet back in this room and they're going to listen to the tape recorder. And the only downside for me for this book was I was hoping that there would be a last chapter where it's 20 years from when the book took place and we got to meet them 20 years later. So I don't know, I'd like to see her do something like with that in the future, but otherwise this book was so good and so deep, and it just makes you think a lot about diversity and the struggles that people have when they're part of a minority. And this one I would say probably maybe ages 10 and up or so. Okay, so those are my middle grade book recommendations for this time. Like I said, I have a ton of books to recommend, so I might make this a monthly thing for a while. And if you've read any of these, I'd love to hear what you think about them, or if you are going to read any of them, either by yourself or with your kids, or recommend them to your kids. I would love to hear it. And I'm always looking for book recommendations from you. So if there is middle grade books that you would suggest that I read in the future, let me know, leave a comment below, and I'll totally look into that. Happy reading!